Some newly obtained video shows the moments leading up to a deadly explosion that killed a top Russian general today in Moscow. A source tells us that one of the men you're about to see is in fact Lieutenant General Igor Kilorov. And we can't show you the blast itself because it's too graphic, but here is part of the footage.
Russian officials say the general and his assistant were killed when a remotely detonated bomb planted in an electronic scooter, which you may have noticed standing there next to that door, went off. Kyiv has claimed responsibility. Ukraine has claimed responsibility here. Kirilov was wanted by Ukraine for using chemical weapons. Russian officials are calling his killing a, quote, terrorist act.
Let's discuss with retired Lieutenant General Mark Hertling. General Hertling, thank you so much for being with us. Obviously, this explosion, a very ambitious and well-planned targeted attack. I wonder what the strategy was behind Ukraine targeting this specific Russian official.
Yeah, well, this isn't the first, Boris, as you know, and some of the reporting CNN has put out has showed that there have been multiple attempts at killing high-ranking Russian officials. On this particular one, it was a very good targeting approach because this individual is in charge of what's called the NBC capability of Russia, nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons. Russia has used chemical weapons inside of Ukraine. They've used a type of what's called CS gas or chlorine type of gas to basically affect soldiers on the front line. And that's in violation of both the Geneva Convention and the law of land warfare. So in absentia, the courts in Ukraine has held this individual, Colonel General Kirilov, a three-star general, as a war criminal. So this was a targeted attack on him to kill him, but it's also important that it's been done on the streets of Moscow. Some of the targets that have been conducted have been close to the city center. So you're seeing, basically a psychological approach to tell Russian soldiers, Russian generals, there is no safe place for you, excuse me. If you're not on the front line, we're still going to come after you. And this is a valid target under the laws of land warfare.
What's also significant here is that a source quickly told CNN that Ukraine's security services were behind the assassination. What do you make of the speed with which Ukraine claimed responsibility here?
Well, they want to, Brianna. And again, it gets to the psychological effects of something like this. We are everywhere in Russia. That's the message Ukraine is saying. They've struck targets with drones, with some unmanned aircraft, a variety of unmanned naval vehicles have struck the Black and the Baltic Sea fleets. So you're talking about that Ukraine is sending the message that if you're going to strike our infrastructure inside of Ukraine, we're going to come after you too. And again, I'll repeat it, there is no safe place for the Russians who are commanding this illegal invasion of Ukraine.
What do you anticipate the Russian response to this is going to be?
Well, Boris, in the past, what they have done is amped up the number of drones and missile attacks inside of Ukraine against various infrastructure targets, hospitals, schools, energy sources. I think we'll see some more of that. I'm not sure how much more they could do. There were a couple of days last week where there were between 200 and 300 kinetic projectiles launched inside of Ukraine against civilian targets. So once more, it's the illegality of what Russia is doing as war crimes against the country and the citizens of Ukraine, avoiding the military aspect of what's going on. So Ukraine is fighting back by saying, we're going to come into Russia and strike military targets and leave your infrastructure alone. But they're going after the same kind of things that Russia is doing in Ukraine, except making it more adamant and more psychological to hit a couple of 100 miles from the front line between Russia and Ukraine. So they're taking the fight deep into Russian territory to strike some of the key Russian targets.
Lieutenant General Mark Hertling, appreciate the analysis. Thanks so much for joining us.
Claire Sebastian has herself reported extensively from Russia. She joins us now live from London. Claire, let's just do a bit of a deep dive here. Just how rare is an attack like this in Moscow?
Becky, it's pretty rare, and I'll get to that in a second, but we have seen recently a bit of an uptick. But first, I want to bring you a video that CNN has obtained from a source with knowledge of the operation. This shows the moments just before the blast. You can see two people emerging from that building. The source has told us that one of those was Kirillov. Now, we're not showing the moment of the explosion. You can simply see the dashboard here, but I don't know if we can play that again. And you can see just by the lamppost, just next to that doorway, is something that looks like a scooter. We know from Russian media reports that there was a bomb, they say, hidden in a scooter, which was responsible for this attack. So I think what this video shows us is a real sense of this being a targeted killing. Someone obviously watching, monitoring. We have heard reports from Russian state media that this was a remotely detonated device. So that speaks to the sophistication and, of course, the ambition here of targeting someone at such a high level. But as I mentioned, we have seen recently an increase in this. There has been, in fact, we believe this is the fourth incident in 2 months where Ukraine has directly or indirectly admitted responsibility for the assassination of a military figure in Russia or in Crimea. In the case of one of them, there was a pilot with the 52nd Heavy Bomber Regiment in Bryansk in late October, then a senior official with the Black Sea Fleet in November, and just last week, a top designer with a Russian sort of military industrial company believed by a Ukrainian source with the security services to be responsible for upgrading cruise missiles used on Ukraine. So this, the fourth such incident. This is the highest ranking military official that we've seen targeted. And I think, look, clearly in the context of this war, as the clock ticks down to Donald Trump taking up the US presidency for the second time, questions around military aid and Russia still inching forward on the Eastern Front. It speaks to Ukraine's rush here to use any means they can to seize the initiative.
Yeah. And what about Kirillov's use of chemical weapons in Ukraine? Those are allegations. How credible are they?
Yeah, they are credible. Becky, we have done our own reporting on this. CNN's correspondents have been to the front lines, spoken to medics, spoken to people who've survived gas attacks. And, you know, the Ukrainian security services only yesterday, on Monday, indicted Kirillov, charged him in absentia with war crimes, they say, for the widespread use of chemical substances. Just to be clear here, we're talking in various incidents, CNN has reported CS gas, riot agents like that on the front lines. He's also been sanctioned by the UK for the use of these sort of riot agents, these choking substances. The US has also sanctioned Russia for the use of these. So they are credible. He is seen as the guy, essentially, who gave the orders to use these substances against the Ukrainian military.
Claire Sebastian, it is always good to have you. Thank you very much indeed.
Breaking overnight, a top Russian general was killed by a bomb hidden on an electric scooter early this morning. Russia's investigative committee is calling it a, quote, terrorist attack. Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov led Russia's nuclear, biological, and chemical protection forces. We have some new video into CNN that shows the moment the Russian general and one of his aides leave a building just moments before the blast. His death comes just one day after Ukrainian prosecutors charged the general in absentia with the use of banned chemical weapons in Ukraine. A source with knowledge of the operation told CNN that Ukraine's security services were behind this assassination. With us now is CNN Global Affairs analyst, former Secretary of Defense Mark Esper. Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for being with us.
Good morning, John.
This is Ukraine striking in the heart of Moscow, blocks from the Kremlin, a senior Russian general. I'm wondering what it says about Ukraine's capabilities and what you think the impact might be.
Well, Ukraine has had a capability going on 2 years now to reach deep into Russia, to include Moscow. If you recall, early on in the war, they shot drones at the Kremlin. So they have this capability. They've gone after others before, but clearly this is payback for what they allege have been over 4,600 chemical attacks against Ukrainian forces, Ukrainian civilians in that country during this, 2.5-year war now.
What do you think it will do to the possibility of ending this conflict? Would it inflame the Russians?
Sure, a little bit. But look, Russians have the momentum right now. They're gaining ground, it seems, every day. They're getting very close to the strategic city of Pokrovsk, which is a crossroads for logistics. So time is not on the Ukrainian side. And at the same time, they know that Donald Trump's coming into office in 4 or 5 weeks, and it's unclear what's going to happen then.